Alright guys, what is up? Schmaden Schmooky here, back at it again. So small little disclaimer before we actually get into the meat of the video. I have been increasingly lazy, basically throughout the entirety of May, and I'm hoping to change that a little bit in June. However, I recently picked up a job, so I don't know how flexible I'm going to be in that regard. But essentially, I have several videos planned for this channel. I just have yet to write any of the scripts or do any editing for them. And so, like, for example, this video was supposed to come out, like, end of February, beginning of March kind of thing. And so, obviously, it hasn't. I've been so busy, I've been so lazy, and I'm not really gonna use it, you know, like, as an excuse, but there's still stuff going around about the global pandemic, and then now we have all the riots and police brutality stuff. So, you know, there's always the conflict of a content creator of like, well, you know, is now even the right time to post my content or stuff like that. So, but regardless, we're going to take a shot in the dark here and try and get through this video. So without further ado, here is Final Fantasy VII Remake, Thoughts and Impressions. The Final Fantasy VII Remake is a really big project that has taken up a lot of Square's time, energy, and resources. Likewise, I wanted to make sure that I put in an equal effort for this review. So, in today's video, we're going to talk about the good, the bad, the ugly when it comes to the Final Fantasy VII Remake. Let's start with probably one of the easier things to talk about first, the music. The soundtrack for this game is astounding. They remade so many old tracks from the original game, but added new twists and elements to each individual song that makes them feel new and unique. I remember going through, I believe it's the slums in the original Final Fantasy VII, and hearing the music just become so overbearing. I actually, if I didn't have to turn the volume down, I just flat out had to mute it before the song restarted with that very sudden, just like, loop. The same track is in the remake, but has been fine-tuned to not be nearly as overbearing and loops less abruptly, in my opinion anyways. Hearing the remixes to the title and battle theme is purely nostalgic, and rightfully so. And don't even get me started on One Winged Angel. I will say, if you're unfamiliar with the original game soundtrack, then some of these songs may not be nearly as impactful to you. Like, as someone who played the original Final Fantasy VII, I remember going through the towns or going through, like, the slums or, like, you know, like the other areas that aren't towns. And I remember listening to the music and being like, oh, I remember this from the main game. I remember when I did those battles and when I grinded for hours and when I did those quests. Like, yeah, I remember this song. It's a good song. It was kind of cool. But to new listeners, they're probably just good songs. Not a whole lot more, not a whole lot less. The songs that stick out from the original stick out here too. But if you're a returning player or just a Final Fantasy veteran in some regard, then you'll be sure to remember and appreciate each new track. So next, let's talk about the gameplay. The gameplay of the Final Fantasy VII Remake is easily one of the easiest systems to get a hold of. I remember playing the demo and thinking to myself, this is way too cluttered, I'm required to do way too much at once. While I'm unsure if they changed anything between the demo and the main game's gameplay on like a mechanical perspective, as far as the gameplay goes, I didn't feel this way while playing the actual game. Everything felt really smooth and really fluid. The way that they've incorporated the ATB bar and how it's used with a mechanic that slows down time and grants your characters turn-based like battle is really unique, really interesting, and an overall great concept. The gameplay is some of the best, but also easiest, that I've played from an RPG. Unless you play on a harder difficulty, abusing the game's gameplay mechanic is a walk in the park. Comboing regular melee attacks with the character's super triangle attack, and then buffering a special move with your ATB bar is an essential combo that practically every character has and can abuse, but specifically Cloud, Barret, and Tifa. Functioning materia in this game is really easy to understand. Similar to the original game though, the only reason that you're ever really gonna want to have more than one of the same materia is if you have another character that you want to give that materia to. The only time I found myself doing this, however, was with the cure spells. I assigned each character their own magical element and equipped support materia that I felt best suited them from a gameplay perspective. Cloud had lightning, Barret had fire, Tifa had blizzard, and Aerith had arrow. Aerith and Barret are the tankier two characters of the four, so they had the most support skills regarding items and magical properties on them. Tifa and Cloud are more offensive, so I gave them more battle-related support materia like the ATB and limage gauge increaser. Since you're controlling Cloud for the majority of your fights, I gave him a cure materia as well. At this point, I just gave Tifa one, since 3 out of the 4 other characters had it, and I wouldn't have to rely on any of them to heal Tifa. Essentially, if you know what you're doing, it's very easy to abuse the game's materia in gameplay. But in a good way. It's not like, Kingdom Hearts 3 Fyra abuse or anything like that. Next, let's talk about the characters. The Final Fantasy VII Remake does an outstanding job fleshing out its characters. Characters that were side characters in the original game, or only had one line, now are fully fledged and thought out characters in the remake. Whether or not you consider that a good or bad thing is up for you to decide, but I personally enjoyed it. While not every side character was instantly made big with this change, it's still nice to see that I'm actually able to form opinions about these characters' lifestyles and personalities, rather than having to judge the polygons from the original. The dialogue that the playable cast shares with one another is really astounding. They all have chemistry in any regard, really, and you'd actually believe that they're friends. I must say, Aerith is my favorite character out of the bunch. I absolutely adore what they did with her in the remake. She's cute and flirtatious, but really comical, while Tifa still remains the badass that she is in the original game, and, the specific other outlet that Tifa was in, being Advent Children, Tifa, in the remake, is almost weird. Like, she's the kind of person that will easily punch someone to death, but if she thought for a second that Cloud would be upset, or if Cloud was watching, she'd cross her arms and go, "Oh, oopsie, did I do that?" She is incredibly clingy towards Cloud, and it was noticeably weird. Tifa seemed like she was only one step away from being completely defined as Cloud's clingy love interest. Aerith, on the other hand, while obviously a love interest for Cloud too, she stands out above that. Her character and personality isn't reliant off of Cloud, but complements him. They have really funny and really iconic moments together because they act like a real duo. Tifa and Cloud's best moment like this is basically just the dialogue where they have either before or immediately after a fight in the overworld where Cloud says, "Keep those gloves up." Tifa is mostly concerned about Cloud and Aerith being together. While both Tifa and Aerith show competition to one another in the original game, it seems more like they took the fight out of Aerith and put it all into Tifa, which made her way more clingy. Barret is great. He was great in the original game, he has been great in all of his other appearances, and he is fantastic here. I love what they did with him, his voice acting, and everything. Not much else to comment there. The Avalanche Crew, and I'm looking here and I misspelled Avalanche in the script. Wow. The Avalanche Crew of Jessie, Wedge, and Biggs was really great to see fleshed out. Jessie obviously sticks out like a sore thumb, given how much she flirts with Cloud. In some cases, she can be as annoying as Tifa, but in other cases, she's as charming as Aerith. Jessie goes back and forth between these two extremes quite frequently, so it's hard for me, and from my perspective anyway, to really get a specific opinion on her. There isn't much else to say for Biggs and Wedge. They give the two of them a specific character trait, which is handsome brute and nerdy fat kid. They stick with those traits rather well without it being too overbearing, so they're great. There's plenty of side characters to mention too, like the Turks, but I'd rather save that for when we talk about the story. But before we do that, let's talk about Midgard. Midgard is beautifully recreated in the Final Fantasy VII Remake. It's really nice to see how the different sectors and outskirt areas all connect. I'll admit, at times it's difficult to remember which sector connects to what locations. Thankfully, the Chocobo Quick Travel helps with this. However, even with the Chocobo Quick Travel, I still personally found myself asking, what's the best way to get to this specific area? Since not every area has an option to quick travel, I found myself having to go to the nearest location, but even then, I didn't know where that was. The issue isn't all that bad though, given how I only have 3 brain cells, unlike you, the viewer. Every iconic area in the remake has been respectfully remade to model what it did back on the PlayStation 1. The Final Fantasy VII Remake is how one would imagine Final Fantasy VII in their heads. Bells, frogs, big cherries, Peter Pan, mac and cheese. We're going to talk about the story now, folks. So, before we get into the story, we should probably lay some groundwork first. First of all, the story of the Final Fantasy VII Remake that released in March of 2020 only tells the story of the Midgard section from the original Final Fantasy VII. To put this in perspective, the original Final Fantasy VII is made up of 3 discs. Disc 1 and 2 actually hold the majority of the game, with Disc 3 just being the final boss and story cutscenes. The Midgard section from the original Final Fantasy VII is merely the first 7 to 8 hours of the first disc. According to GameLinks.com, the average playtime for the full 3 discs in the original Final Fantasy VII is 76 hours. So, Square took the first 7 to 8 hours of that 76-hour experience and expanded it to the 30 and 40-hour playtime that the remake has to offer. What does this mean? From my perspective, as someone who has played and completed both versions, Square spent the majority of their time adding new content for you to do. There were not many side quests in the original Final Fantasy VII from my memory. There's now a handful of them to complete for roughly every chapter in the game, minus the last 2. The 30 to 40 hours it takes to beat the remake is including the extra side quest content. Without doing any of the side quests, you're playing the remake for 30 hours, maybe 32, tops. While this is where the majority of the new content stems from, the story itself from the original game has been stretched out and altered. It should also be worth mentioning that playing a game on an emulator with 2, 3, or 4 times speed and having text bubbles the size of your intellect is a lot faster than having a fully fledged voice lines and animated cutscenes than the remake. By nature, the remake would be much longer than the original game, whether they went ahead and fully remade the story or just part of it. So what about the story is different? Was anything added? Removed? The answer is yes! All of it! Again, the outline of the story is the same. Cloud is recruited by the Echo terrorist group Avalanche, hey, I spelled it right here, to help them blow up a Mako reactor in one of the sectors. From there, Cloud and Co. keep trying to mess with the Mako energy company Shinra, who essentially runs all of Midgard. The biggest change to the story is Sephiroth's role in the inclusion of the Whispers. Both of these are tangled within one another for the cause of the plot. If you haven't played the game yet, this is where we get into spoiler territory. 3, 2, 1.
It is revealed that Cloud is actually a cybernetic turtle from the future, searching for the mystic Mungus.
Okay, so the Whispers are basically time travel police. Anything that goes against the natural course of history, the Whispers try to stop. Now, the theory is that Sephiroth, after losing an Advent Children, has found some way to time travel, or perhaps the current version of Sephiroth that's within Final Fantasy VII has, I guess, gained some sort of higher knowledge about the future and aims to change it in his favor. However, the Whispers are preventing him from doing so. So, Sephiroth essentially teases Cloud and his party throughout the events of the remake so that they can defeat the Whispers for him. At the end of the game, you destroy the Whispers and Sephiroth is free to do as he wants. However, you defeat him as well. Sorta. Kinda. The main thing that has everyone's panties in a wad is that in the remake, because the events of the future have been changed, the events in the past have been as well. This would mean Zack, from Crisis Core, is alive. This is, of course, very significant, because Cloud has retained not only Zack's sword, but his memories after Zack died. But if Zack is alive, then how is Cloud? Well, Cloud. Where is Zack now? It's questions and changes like these that really stirred up a lot of emotions from fans, both old and new. Speaking of which, while director Tetsuya Nomura has claimed that the remake is supposed to be opening for both new and old fans, the ending of the remake is purely something that only fans would maybe understand. Like, you even have a lot of hardcore fans, or just a lot of veteran Final Fantasy players that were still like, I don't know what happened at the end of that ending. Whereas new players, if older players are having issues understanding, the new players probably will too. So, now, let me talk about my feelings. That was all the objective stuff that I put onto a script. From here on out, we're going unscripted, baby. Alright, so how do I feel about the Final Fantasy VII Remake? How did it change my life? How did it interact with my soul and my spirit? Where is my dog? He was supposed to be in this room. I can't find him. Anyways, so, personally, I loved the Final Fantasy VII Remake. I loved it. There's very few games that I can actually sit there and say, I love that game. And the ones that I can say are probably Persona 5, both itself and Royal, the Final Fantasy VII Remake, and probably Pokemon X and Y, I guess. Now, I know X and Y is, like, considered one of the worst ones, but Pokemon X and Y came out as I turned a teenager, so it was kind of like that point of, like, I'm playing a kiddie game, but I'm playing it as a man. And so, I personally liked X and Y when it came out, and so I just have that kind of nostalgic for it, so that's why I quote-unquote love it. I'm sure there's a few other games, but, like, those are the ones that I can easily say, I love you. Yeah, so Final Fantasy VII Remake, I love it. I genuinely love it. I would date it, marry it, have kids, and die peacefully in bed together. That's my opinion with the Final Fantasy VII Remake. Drinking coffee. Alright, so what are my thoughts about the ending? Because that's what you're still here for. What are my thoughts about the ending? Okay, I'm going to say this now. The ending is absolutely Kingdom Hearts BS. That is what the ending is. I will admit that till the day I die. The ending is absolute Kingdom Hearts BS. But, with that being said, yes, it's confusing. Yes, it's really unnecessary. But, yeah, it's just Kingdom Hearts. It's Kingdom Hearts. And a lot of people blame Tetsuya Nomura for that. And personally, I think that blame is rightfully put in order. But, like, when you look, like, if you do the Wikipedia for the Final Fantasy VII Remake, there's more than just Nomura. Now, that doesn't mean it's, like, you know, all, shoot, I can't remember everyone's name. Wikipedia FF7 Remake. I'm gonna, see, here's the thing, I'm gonna try and remember one of the directors, or, like, one of the producers, or whatever's name, and then I'm gonna get it wrong. Okay, Toriyama, yeah, that's one of the people I was gonna say. Okay, so, like, the three mainish people that I see here is Nomura, Toriyama, Katase, and Nojima. Those are, like, the four main people here that a lot of people are paying attention to, at least from what I've seen, is Nomura, Toriyama, Katase, and Nojima. So, there's been a lot of debate going back and forth between mostly the Kingdom Hearts community about whose fault is it that the Final Fantasy VII Remake was so convoluted. Is it Nojima because he's one of the writers? Is it Toriyama because he's one of the writers? Is it Nomura because he's a director and he also does Kingdom Hearts and this is a lot like Kingdom Hearts? It's everyone. I'm just gonna smudge it. It's everyone's fault. It's Nomura's, it's Hamaguchi, it's Toriyama's, it's Katase's, it's Nojima's as well, it's Iwaka, it's Hirano. I don't even know if that's how you say their names, but it's all their faults. But here's the deal. It's not that big a deal. That's the thing, though. It's a video game ending that was a bit convoluted, It's not nearly as convoluted as Kingdom Hearts is or has been before, so it's fine. Is it convoluted? Yes. But it's not that big a deal. Like, if you just apply... I mean, like, the whole theory thing I mentioned earlier about, like, oh, did Sephiroth time travel? That is a theory. So it's not like it's set in stone. But here's... A lot of fans are worried that Nomura is going to be like... He's going to sit back in his little chair, petting his cat, and he's going to see all these fan theories, and he's basically going to adapt them, merge them together, and spit them back out with no consistency. That's what he does, and that's what people are just worried about when it comes to Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 2, or Episode 2, whatever they call it. That's what people are worried about, and frankly, so am I. But, as far as the original remake, as far as the one that came out of March 2020 is concerned, it's fine. It stands alone. It's fine. But yes, I would blame all of them. So, here's the deal though. Is the writing a mess? Yes. But, I mean, like, is the ending, not the writing. Is the ending a mess? Yes. They do something here's a few bullet points that I'm just gonna mention. And I may go in them in depth. If not, you can ask me about them in the comments. But here's a few things. One, why does Aerith have a character it's almost like an intervention. Like, after she gets kidnapped and you save her, she basically turns into like this sage. Like, she knows all the right things to say. She has all the answers about life and the purpose of life and the core of the earth. Like, why? Now, I understand she's an ancient. I've known that. I played the original FF7. I know what an ancient is. I know she is an ancient. What I'm confused about, however, is why in the remake, after they spent so much time building her up as this flirtatious, comical, but also, you know, really just awesome person, do they give her this 180 character change at the very end purely for the plot? Because basically there's this scene at the end of the game where all these characters are looking into that portal, you know, of where the Whispers are in Sephiroth, and they're all basically they're like all giving like one-handed sentences to each other, you know, basically like trying to guess what it is. And Aerith is just like, it's a time portal or whatever. Like, okay, that was also Cloud's guess, you know, like eventually the group would have probably assumed something like that. Aerith didn't need to step in and be like, I'm a sage, I know the answers. But that's what she does. She does that multiple times at the end of the game. That's all she does at the end of the game. She does that for about 50% of the time when you first rescue her. I noticed it, like when the Whispers were like floating around her, and they were like, "Hold still, we'll get rid of them for you." And she was like, "It's okay, it's okay. They're time travel police." Like, how do you know that? Like, what have you been doing? Like, how? What have they done to you in the past 5 hours that you've been kidnapped? And so, like, that's my one gripe that's one of my gripes with the ending. Another isn't so much with the ending, but with the community of, like, that's played the game itself. So there's basically 3 people who played Final Fantasy VII. There's your Final Fantasy VII veterans, or people who have played Final Fantasy for an extended amount of time, whether they started with 4, whether they started with 7, whether they started with 15, just people who have most of their experience with Square Enix coming from Final Fantasy. Second group of people is your Kingdom Hearts fan base, because bet your sweet leprechaun titty coins that practically every Kingdom Hearts fan, or at least every Kingdom Hearts fan who played Kingdom Hearts 3 because PlayStation 4, played the Final Fantasy VII Remake. It happened. People did it. And so you have all these Kingdom Hearts fans jumping ship, going over to Final Fantasy VII. And so you have basically all the rage, all the snarky questions, convoluted conversations from the Final Fantasy, from the Kingdom Hearts community, from the Kingdom Hearts fan base, and it's all in Final Fantasy VII now. Now, part of that is to blame because of, you know, how the ending just is. The ending fits Kingdom Hearts. But it attracts Kingdom Hearts fans like a moth. And in my opinion, as someone who I'm a Kingdom Hearts fan. All right, I've played it basically since I was like 6 years old. Kingdom Hearts is what got me into Final Fantasy, and even then, I'm not that big into Final Fantasy. Do I love it? Yeah. But Kingdom Hearts is kind of what I owe my gratitude to. So yeah, I consider myself a Kingdom Hearts fan. But holy crap, is this so weird? Is this so just... It's weird, it's raw. It's just, you have all these Kingdom Hearts fans, most of them senseless, jumping ship to Final Fantasy VII Remake. And everything that made Kingdom Hearts convoluted from a community standpoint is now with Final Fantasy VII. I'm just putting that where it is. Now, one of the best things I've seen is this came out the day before FF7 came out. Skyward Wing, who used to do YouTube and stuff of Kingdom Hearts and of cartoons like Steven Universe, he tweeted out the day before the Final Fantasy VII Remake came out. He said, Kingdom Hearts is one of the messiest, dumbest, poorly written video games to ever exist. But I will always cop next title on day one. And I could not agree more. Like, I feel like this is the kind of mentality that Kingdom Hearts fans should have when it comes to Kingdom Hearts. Like, don't sit there and tell me it's not weird that you have basically 4 characters. Here's another thing. Like, there was this, I think this is Reddit, but there's this picture. It says, same character, and it has Riku from Kingdom Hearts 2, quote-unquote Ansem from Kingdom Hearts 2, Riku from Kingdom Hearts 1, and Dark Riku from Kingdom Hearts 1, or Chain of Memories. And then different characters, Data Riku, Ansem from Kingdom Hearts 3, Kingdom Hearts 1, Riku from Kingdom Hearts 1, and then Repliku. Like, you cannot tell me, as a Kingdom Hearts fan, it's not convoluted. This is normal. This isn't normal. What are you talking about? But yeah, so that's another gripe I have with the Final Fantasy VII Remake, is because of its ending, it attracts all these Kingdom Hearts fans like a moth, and it's really just unnecessary and dumb and weird, and I'm not a fan of it. Meaning, like, I'm not a fan of how Kingdom Hearts fans just kind of, like, swarmed in, and now everything within communication of, like, the Final Fantasy VII player fan base got so convoluted. And then, like, another thing that kind of stems from that is that Kingdom Hearts fans tend to make everything about Kingdom Hearts. Like, if Sakurai, the Smash director, posted a picture of him with his car keys, or him wearing a crown, or something like that, Kingdom Hearts fans would find some way that picture would not only confirm Sora for Smash, but would confirm the existence of Kingdom Hearts 62784 recoded / Dream Drop by Sleep 78 on the Nintendo flip phone. Like, Kingdom Hearts have this really bad habit of making everything about Kingdom Hearts. It's really dumb, it's really weird, but that's another thing with Final Fantasy VII. So, anyways, kind of getting back on track here. I'm done hashing on Kingdom Hearts now. But anyways, as far as the remake goes, the ending is really weird. The ending should not have been as convoluted as it was. I was fine with it. I'm fine with Zack being alive. I'm fine with, there's this whole idea that, like, Aerith won't die, but as far as the plot of Final Fantasy VII goes, one of the whole reasons that Sephiroth is able to get out of that little iceberg is because Aerith dies. Like, that's why he, quote-unquote, kills her, even though that wasn't technically him. So, yeah, like, Aerith has to die, and my necklace is all janked up. Why are you janked up, little necklace? Anyways, Aerith has to die. So, but it's interesting, because they've made the story in a way to where whether they keep Aerith alive or whether they kill her off, it'll still be interesting. Especially with the fact that Zack is also now supposedly alive. Personally, I think he died shortly after he escaped and, took Cloud to safety. I think he still died. But even then, it's kind of like, well, what was that whole build-up for? You let a character live 15 minutes longer. Which is dumb. That's dumb. But I personally think Zack is dead. I think he died shortly after the events of the end of Crisis Core. But yeah, so overall, I really liked it. I'm really looking forward to part 2. Hopefully this recording wasn't as long as I think it is. But yeah, so guys, let me know about your thoughts on the Final Fantasy VII Remake down in the comments below, and I'll catch y'all next time. Peace.